So when it comes to March, there's really only so many things that you can do out in the garden. And I think half of what you do should probably be focused on maintenance tasks that you don't want to do later. And that could be things like cleaning out your gutters or just cleaning up your garden, cleaning up the area. Because when you get to April or May, you will thank yourself that you've already done those tasks and you have more time to focus on the gardening that you want to be doing then. But this year it's a little different. My landscape fabric actually has something growing in it, and you might be surprised to see what it is. So you can see right here and all the way over there, this is all strawberries. And so if you take a look right in here and all the way across there, this is all landscape fabric, but these are strawberries. What I'm planning on doing is just using the landscape fabric almost like a rug. So I was trying to do a little bit of weed prevention underneath my peach tree area, and I realized that I had almost an infinite set of strawberries. And this could just fill in that area real nicely. And in the next 1 to 2 years, I'll have very little weeding to have to do over there. And I have to say it's an area that I tend to weed a lot because it's a high visibility area. Whenever I have guests over, they always kind of walk through that area. So I want to make sure that that looks nice. And this is, I don't like using the term garden hacks, but I do think this is kind of a garden hack if I ever saw one. So this whole container right over there is filled with strawberries, and that was a project that I did last year to contain the strawberries. But with that said, I missed quite a few in the front, which I wasn't, too concerned about, but they've grown into the path. And while the path is kind of cool, as it's growing out the strawberries throughout the year, it gets to the point where you don't really want to step on the strawberries as you're walking through the garden because you're stepping on the fruits, it can kind of get messy. And so what I'm doing right now is this area right here is all landscape fabric, and I'm going to be just kind of like pulling these strawberries out because the roots go through the landscape fabric to get water, but they're not very deep. They're mostly on the upper side of the fabric. So you see this one right here, like this is fabric right here. This one right here, let's just go ahead and we can just kind of pop it out. So you see that, and that doesn't seem like it's going to affect the roots too much. And what do you know, I've got a bucket right here that I am just dropping in my runners. I don't think this could be much easier. So this will be nice to have just a whole bunch of runners for free, and I can kind of just go around and plant these wherever I want to have more strawberries. And as I remember, these strawberries aren't as good as some of the large leaf ones I have over here, so you got to make sure to mix them up. These ones tend to produce smaller strawberries, and last year they kind of got attacked by slugs. I was thinking about just cutting all the fabric altogether, but I don't know if I even have to do that now. And even if I do end up killing off a few of these runners, I'm not too worried about that because I have so many, and they'll just grow back into this spot again. It's just going to keep happening. These are the nice ones right here. So we're going to take a big, healthy clump right there. So now I'm on the other side of my outdoor patio. I've got a peach tree, another peach tree there, and a nectarine in the middle. This area just gets filled with weeds. So my goal is to fill this in with something that's going to be a ground cover that I prefer. And I'm going to do that by creating a living ground cover of strawberries. So my strategy was to just put them about one every, we'll say, square foot. And right now it definitely looks a little bit like a mess. And planting these is really simple. All I'm doing is just taking the plant and lifting just a little bit of soil, not a lot, because these are going to be growing from the top, and just putting it there, and then it will root into the ground as the ground continues to thaw. But this soil right now is actually perfect because it's a little bit moist. We had some snow melt, and so the ground is, oh, perfect. And I decided to plant a whole container right in here, so that's why it's mounding up. This one looks a little bit cleaner. I mean, they don't look like much right now, but that one I actually have the plant bag in there because I didn't really want to pull it off, and it'll be fine. It'll grow like that. So these ones that have the bigger leaves, I've noticed these grow bigger strawberries, and that's my only other consideration right now is I might go try to find a few more of those, put those in here. But this in itself should be enough to fill this out over the course of this year. It'll probably cover like 80% of the area by September, October. And then next year they'll be probably overflowing out the sides and I'll have to trim them, but it should look pretty good. So I'm gonna see if I can find a few more of those bigger strawberry leaves because I just know those are gonna be really good in the summer. So I will thank myself later for finding some more now and putting them over there. Looks like these ones right here. Another solid clump right here. You can just see how that one hung on to the fabric, and that's kind of why I was thinking about just cutting the fabric out. Then you can pull it, but I don't know that's necessary because then these will grow into the fabric again later this summer. I have to say that this is really addicting. It's like I just feel like I'm getting free strawberries for every one of these I pull out of the ground, and I am. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these strawberries back over and planted. I almost forgot I had these cranberries. I bought a 4-pack of these last year and just kept them in this planter filled with water, and they were overflowing and produced cranberries in the first season. And you can see these leaves right here kind of dried out, but these are certainly not in there. So that'll be nice to find a place for those this year. We've got strawberries everywhere now, but might as well have even more. I'm trying to intermix the big ones with the smaller ones. Smaller ones are very prolific. The big ones are way more delicious. So the nice thing about this is that the time it takes me to plant these strawberries will be less than it would take to weed this garden bed in the summer. So I think, I might have another time this summer where I have to come in and weed this, but hopefully as these grow out, it's less and less. So it really starts to pay off in the second and third years. Not to mention you're getting strawberries that you can eat instead of weeds that you probably won't be eating. Depends on the weed. If you're eating it, it's not a weed. And one more way to grow come on, Blue Jay. And one more way to grow, and one more way to propagate, strawberries that's very, very simple is if you have a container like this, you can just go ahead and put it somewhere and let's see. I'm gonna put this one right here. And what's gonna happen over the summer is that the runners, like right here, they're gonna go down to the ground and root into the ground. So at the end of this season, you can then cut all the runners from this, and then you can bring this pot elsewhere, and it's pretty much just unlimited strawberries. So you can kind of see that this was in fact asparagus by the sort of triangular markings there. These are actually the seed coverings from the asparagus. They look a little bit red. See one right here. They kind of dry out and look a little bit more like these. So you can open those up and see there's actually, I think, some seeds in that one. And I'm definitely fine with the seeds just falling all into this area. That should mean more asparagus for free. All right, so that's looking a little bit better. It was a good reminder of seeing how some of these asparagus, like right down here, got as big as they did last year. This one is probably about 1 inch wide, and that's only on year 2. Fun to see how big some of these get this year. So as I was pulling all those asparagus stalks, there was something that I started to think about and I wanted to talk about. When I was thinking about planting asparagus for the first time, I was thinking how asparagus is biennial, So you only get the asparagus every other year. And it seems like you're gonna have to wait every 2 years for a harvest. And I was always thinking like, year 1, have asparagus. Year 2, nothing there. Forget about it. Year 3, oh, they're back. That's not really how it works. Just plant a whole lot of asparagus crowns and you're almost guaranteed to have them every year. You go and you plant 100 crowns, you get 50 one year, you get 50 the next. And it doesn't exactly work like that. I planted my asparagus in rows, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in the back going across. And so far, both years I've gotten asparagus that is shaped like how I planted it. Meaning I got asparagus in each of those rows and there was definitely enough to eat and the asparagus tastes delicious. If you have never had fresh asparagus, you're gonna be really surprised. But I think I was surprised at how many asparagus I got both years so far. And so I'm pretty excited to see what it's gonna look like this year. Anyways, there's one weed in here that I see a lot in areas that don't get as much sun, that don't really dry out as much as quick. And it's all of this green stuff right here. And I have to double check again what this is. If you know what it is, please tell me in the comments. So I brought over a bucket of assorted garden tools, and some of my favorites include this tool right here, which looks like it would be a weapon, but it's not. It's just a combination of a shovel and kind of a dull knife so that you could cut plants with it and then also use it as a measuring device and dig out crops. But I find this to be the most helpful when I'm digging out something like a carrot, just kind of sliding it in and wiggling out the root. And then I've got this tool right here, which I just call my garden hook. And this one might be what I use here to remove some of these weeds. So we'll take a look at how this thing performs. So this probably has a more professional name than just a garden hook, but we're just gonna call it that for now. So it's probably early enough in the season where I don't think I'm going to disturb the asparagus if I use a rake. But because this bed size is not that big, I don't mind doing this by hand. And because this is the first weeding task of the year for me, I'm more willing to deal with this. Good amount of rocks. And typically I'll only weed a garden bed at the beginning of the year and then maybe, I don't know, midsummer. It's just, it's a lot of work. But I usually try to find something that acts as a mulch so I don't have to do all that much weeding. And anything that I end up weeding more than once and, you know, it doesn't look good, I'll probably find a way to put some kind of landscape fabric down. The important thing for me right now is to not dig so deep that I'm starting to actually hit any asparagus that's popping up or crowns, because I think that's very possible. It's not quite April yet, but the weather's been getting warm and I'm feeling like we will see asparagus in the next couple of weeks, if not within the next couple of days. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful about that right now. And I say that as I am officially sitting on all of the asparagus and the garden bed. This tool right here works pretty well for anything that doesn't have super deep roots. It's usually able just to kind of go under the smaller roots and free up the weed. I think I need a rake. This is getting old. I'm gonna go lightly over it to start. And push it mostly just under the rhododendron there. And if I was doing this about a month from now and all the asparagus was popping up, it would be pretty difficult to get in there with a rake of this size. So you might need to use a smaller tool if you're doing it then, which is why I'm doing this now. I think this looks a whole lot better, and I could spend more time on it. I could also spend less time on it, but I think it looks about where I was hoping to get it to. And the most important thing right here is that I can tell when the asparagus will be popping up, and whether that's in a couple days or a couple weeks. It's nice to know that the garden bed here is clear so that I can see when they start to sprout. All right, so actually I've changed my mind. Now that I've got the garden bed all cleaned up, I think what I might do is mulch this with the asparagus browns that were here from last season that I just pulled up. And the reason for this is because I think the soil is looking as good as it is because it was covered throughout the season. There wasn't as much ability for light to really dry out the soil. And so what I'm gonna do is just try to turn this into a mulch, kind of like just a grass or a straw mulch. So I don't think that's gonna be all that hard. It might be a little bit messy. And I'm just gonna make sure that I don't have too many of these greens in there, because that was the main thing I wanted out. So this won't cover everything, but this will be kind of nice to just have as a ground cover temporarily. All right, and now we're back to where we started. No, I'm just kidding. So hopefully that'll help act as mulch, and since that was the asparagus itself, it should contain some of the nutrients that the asparagus need to grow. And acting as mulch, it should also help to keep the garden bed from drying out. One of the things that can be kind of a problem when you go to weed this time of year, you remove all of the cover that's on it, and then suddenly you get a sunny day, it starts to batter down on the soil, and the soil starts to dry out. So you do want to keep the soil from drying out, and putting something on top does help that. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna try to clean up my garden tools because I tend to leave those everywhere. But why don't we take a look at the fish first? See them down in there, all the goldfish. So far, I think I have about maybe 30 goldfish in here that I've counted. And there's a pretty big bullfrog right over there. You're not really gonna see him all that. Oh, he moved. I was about to say you won't see him all that clearly until he jumps. So maybe you saw him, maybe you didn't. I recently connected an aqueduct that I made myself to keep this hydrated, and the water's actually looking pretty good right now. It's looking pretty clear, so I think all that water is helping. So I put this together last summer, and it's doing a good job of bringing water all the way across down into the pond there. So the water drips right out of there, comes on down into the rockway, and I built this too. Just kind of dug up some dirt, put a liner down, and moved a whole bunch of rocks back in here, and it has a gradual grade back down into the water. But this place will be teeming with life in the next couple of months. You'll really start to see it come alive in the spring. So this is one of my cherry trees. I would say that it's doing pretty well, but it's got a complete mess of branches as of last year, and I don't really need a lot of these ones that are just going into my pathway. So generally speaking, you want to cut the ones that are kind of running through the middle of the tree. So I can just kind of get a clean angle on this one. Try not to damage any of the other ones unintentionally. All right, that's good. And I don't need this here. That one down there. Let's What's this one doing? Yeah, let's cut that off. Man, this thing got gnarly last year. I don't know what happened. Ideally, I would have did this about a month ago before it's really starting to turn green, but I think now is still fine as long as I don't chop too much of the tree off. This one almost seems like its own thing. Kind of curious about that. Oh, that's a deep. Ooh. If this is, in fact, cherry, this would be its own tree. Maybe I'll plant that elsewhere. All right, so this looks a little bit better. I was mostly just trying to get some of the branches that were going into the path out of the way. And then I realized that that looks very far from ideal down there. So I cut out a couple of the larger branches. But the important thing is that this is a Lapin's cherry, and no matter what, all these branches are probably just going to mean a lot of extra cherries for me. So I think I'm going to be happy with the tree no matter what. And I got another one right over there I got to take care of. All right, so this might be a little bit hard to see among all of these raspberry canes here, but we have another cherry back here. And this one's looking, I would say, a lot cleaner, a lot better than that one. And this one has a very clear leader. You can see this right here is going all the way up there. So that's pretty cool. And right now, this cherry really isn't in the way of anything. However, I do plan on building a big greenhouse right where I'm standing. And this one's got a clear leader. It's on this one right here, going all the way up. And this one right here looks like it's kind of doing the same thing. I don't want it to, so I'm gonna cut that one out. So by giving it a hard prune, I'm hoping that it's gonna focus on everything from here and above. And I'll say that I feel bad for this tree because I think this tree's been transplanted something like 4 or 5 times. I bought this a few years ago, and it's traveled with me a bunch, and it just keeps moving locations. And now I'm giving it not too hard of a prune, but a relatively hard prune. And it's a little late in the season for that. So I apologize to Lapin's cherry number 2. But I'm hoping this one looks really nice in front of a greenhouse that's gonna be right here. And this one produced some cherries last year. I didn't get too many of them because the birds swooped over here, but I'm just picturing this thing getting a little bit taller and having a greenhouse here, and you can just pick them right off the front of the greenhouse. So it'll be nice in the future when I get to do that. All right, and the last thing I'm gonna do for today, this was one of those extra leaders coming off that first cherry I was pruning, and you can see down here that it's got some decent roots for itself. I did unfortunately kind of pull it apart, and that might be enough to kill it. But since this is basically a plant in itself, I was just going to give it a shot trying to plant it somewhere else so that I just have one extra cherry tree. All right, so I've planted it next to the crappy old water fountain that I've got right here. And I don't know, maybe I'll use that at some point, but I'll check back in a few months and see if it's still alive. So this garden bed's looking pretty good. That's Coreopsis. This is pretty much the first thing that flowers every year, these little yellow flowers. And then it turns into more of a ground cover. These are the daffodils right down in here. And the deer don't seem to ever eat these. Over here on the side, we've got a lot more daffodils popping up. You can see they're almost everywhere, and I did a lot of work to weed this out last year, so it's nice to see how clean that looks. And this dead looking thing right here with the bamboo sticks, that's a peony, so probably have to redo that again for next year. And more daffodils, then we get snowdrops with these the white hanging flowers, and then we get some, I think these are down, these might be crocuses right here. Over here, this is my fig. Hopefully that comes back, but it has a nice reddish look to it. It's a little hard to see on the camera here, but I think that's going to be good for this year. If you notice the 2D looking leaves here, those are iris. Got a few different colors planted. I think this is another tulip right in here. Those take a while to grow. And these are what the coreopsis look like a little bit after they've been grown. You can see yellow to start, and then they kind of fade and kind of open up a little bit more. So I have an evergreen that presses right up to the gutter and drops a lot of its excess evergreen needles into the gutter, and then it starts to break down and form this sort of like I think probably a highly acidic fertilizer. So you can see down right in this bucket here is where I was tossing all of that. And once we move some of the top stuff here, you can see all these kind of decaying evergreen needles. Well, since I believe this to be acidic, or at least beneficial for other acidic loving plants, I'm going to go ahead and coat my blueberries in this container right here with some of this. So I'm basically just going to take some handfuls like that and go ahead and spread it around in there. And I'm doing this right now because I was just taking a quick look, and you can see that this is a new shoot coming off the blueberry. It's maybe not called a new shoot, just like a bamboo, but there's some new growth coming off these blueberries that I'm excited to see. So it means that it's doing well enough in this container, and because I did this last year and it seemed to really help them, so just gonna go ahead and add a little bit more. And I don't really have to do too much more than that, because the next time it rains, it's just going to slowly kind of trickle down into the soil and just amend the soil over time. And one more thing that I'm doing right now in March is cleaning up some of the extra vines on my kiwi. I planted this kiwi, I want to say almost 4 years ago, and it's grown like crazy. And you need a male and a female if you want to produce kiwi fruits. So this side is the male kiwi, and on the other side of my trellis is a female kiwi. So this male kiwi has done a few things. So the base is there, but it's grown all the way up the trellis. And you can see it's just getting a little bit out of control. So now would be a good time to prune anything that I don't want to be in the way. Some of those vines are hanging down, and those are going to end up getting attached to anything that I grow down here. I don't really want that. But as an experiment last year, when this vine grew over here, you can see it's in the soil here. And what I'm going to do is cut this here and allow this to sort of root and create its own plant. I think what I put in there has done that. I'm not entirely sure, but what I'm going to do right now is just cut it here and then move the plant over, and then I'm going to clean up some of the extra stuff here. And the reason why I was thinking it was going to do that is because you can see right down here it's actually done that. So we're going to go ahead and clean up this side right now. So this should be standalone now. So if that starts growing out of that, we'll know that we successfully cloned the male kiwi. And I'm just going to clean up the base a little bit. It's a lot of extra kiwi stuffs growing down there. And I wish these were a little sharper. These cuts aren't as clean as I would like, but that's okay. Got a whole bunch of onions popping up down there, and I can actually smell them from here, and it's quite nice. So I'm back over at my compost piles, but I would say that if you are someone who enjoys basket weaving, the kiwi might actually be a pretty good option, because these vines have a lot of flexibility in them. I will say I am going to leave these on the top of the pile here because I want to prevent them from rooting in the ground over here. So I'm just gonna leave them up top right there. So this is the female kiwi in comparison, and you can see that it's you know, it's gotten pretty big in the last few years, and it's a little bit straggly, but it didn't have as many sort of side runners, and part of that is because I've just been wrapping some of these vines just like this around my trellis here. So you can see it's going all the way up, and it'll be pretty nice in a couple months. It's actually a really effective way of giving yourself some shade pretty fast. So when the summer hits, I'll be able to come down to this corner of the garden and just hang out there. And there's even a bird that made a nest up here last summer in the vines. So here's my fig. It's probably about a little over 6 feet tall now. And while the main stem here feels a little bit tough, like I could just snap this in half, I'm obviously not going to, because I think up top here we've got some new growth showing up, and it'll be exciting to see what this fig looks like this year. I did have a few things that seemed to survive the winter. One of them was parsley. You can see right here, we've got quite a bit of green on this parsley. So down in here we have quite a few onions that are popping up. So those sort of, you could sort of say they survived the winter, or they're just kind of growing out of the old onions, but quite a few in there, and I might come through and weed out everything else. Down here we got our kale, and I can't seem to kill this kale, but it's actually looking like it's had a tougher winter than normal. So this might be the year I just remove it and put something else in here. Then another garden find is, I think this might be garlic right here. I planted some supermarket garlic last year kind of late, thinking that it was going to do well. It sort of did and sort of didn't. And then it's a little hard to see with the contrast, but this is all sage right here. Tons and tons of sage, and you can kind of tell where the good stuff is out on the outside here. And that smells real nice. So I'm going to have to get to weeding this entire section of the garden, and that does usually take me the longest because it's the biggest, but we'll get to that soon. But for today, the sun's about to go down, so I think I'm going to wrap things up, and just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. If you watched it all the way to this point, I do appreciate it. And if you watched it to this point, hopefully you liked it. And if you liked it, hopefully you can, tap the like button. And if you haven't already, tap subscribe so you can see more of this nonsense. Thanks for watching. All right, so that was the majority of the first row here, and then maybe a little bit of the second one. I was just trying to fill the bucket so I didn't have to make too many trips to the compost bin. And the birds are flying around me right now out here. The biggest problem I have at the end of the garden bed here is, it's a 4-letter word, mint. Those mint roots, they get really gnarly, and I think they're rhizomes, so they're kind of like bamboo and almost impossible to get rid of. So unless you're growing unless you're growing mint in a container, don't do it. All right, well, the sun is just starting to go behind the trees, and that means I don't have that much time left in the day to finish gardening. So what I'm gonna do now, and probably the last task of the day, is just get this second garden row cleaned up. And if I can do that before the sun's down, that'll be a win for today. So where I'm at now is it's getting late and we've got a few more minutes of sun and I'm pretty tired. But I think I might just do a little bit more cleanup, maybe like the first half of this next row. All right. No, that's enough. So if you watched the video all the way to this point, I do really appreciate it. And if you did, I hope you liked it. And if you liked it, I hope you can just go ahead and tap the like button. And if you haven't already, tap subscribe. You'll get to see more of this nonsense, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.